Hey there, everybody. It's me, Chase. I'm sorry that I was not able to do more updates on the trip in the last couple days. The truth was, just things got super busy. As in, like, we were just working all day long, and when we weren't working, we were either having dinner, so there's no time then to do a video like this, or we were going to bed. Because we were just burned out. I mean, just so tired. Everybody just was ready for bed because we had to get up early in the morning to start the next day. Close that. It's a little distracting. But I was not able to do more updates on things that were happening. And especially again, Saturday General Conference was all day out there, starting from like 10 in the morning, going all the way into the evening hours, and then from 6 we ended up around 6 o'clock at night, obviously from 10 to 6, but then we went to go watch the debate between Jeff Durbin, James White, and two atheist agnostic guys about whether God is necessary for ethics in our world. Spoiler alert, and I'm not saying this because I'm on the Christian side, James White and Jeff pretty much destroy these guys. I mean, just it was a little. Honestly, it was a little. I felt a little bad for the guys because they were getting laughed at in the debates, and that's not necessarily a cool thing, but they did say some statements that were just absolutely incredible. But yeah, it was a good debate nevertheless. Some rules were broken a little bit between both sides, but it was still a good debate. I got to meet James White. I got to meet Jeff Durbin, which was great. I only got pictures with James White, and I met Jeff in the middle of the debate during the break time. I always tell myself, if I meet him, I meet him. If I don't, that's fine. It's no big deal to me. So what I do is I'm like, well, my water bottle is pretty much out of water. So I went downstairs. We were kind of up pretty high in the lecture room or hall, whatever. And then I went down to go get some water out in the hallway, refilled my water, and as I'm coming back, there's Jeff just walking towards me. He's a tall dude. He's actually pretty tall, but he's walking right towards me, and he has these like incredibly pale blue eyes. I mean, just like talking about German Aryan type of eyes. I don't know if he is, but it's still, his eyes are just like husky blue. So he's just walking right towards me, and I guess he's gonna go get some water or something like that. And there's people all around me too, but he's looking right at me, and I'm looking right at him. And I just, I was like, well, I guess this is a good chance to just shake Jeff's hand. And so I said, Jeff, good seeing you, man. Good to see you here. And he just smiles back, he shakes my hand, and he says he's glad I'm here, even though he doesn't know who I am. And that was it. That was me meeting Jeff. So I got to meet Jeff Durbin. I got to shake his hand. Troy was making fun of me. He's like, now you're never gonna wash that hand, are you? I was like, nope, never gonna wash this hand. But yeah, so it was just like a surprise meeting for me, which are the best to me, to be honest with you. They're like way better than just like sitting in line and waiting to meet the guy. Just getting a little surprise, kind of thing is kind of more rewarding to me, I think. But so I didn't get a picture with Jeff, but I got to meet him very briefly. But I got to meet him. My sister got a picture with him. If you don't know who Jeff Durbin is, he's a pretty well-known guy in that area, and he's the director of End Abortion Now, trying to end abortion in America. He is an incredible evangelist. I don't care what you think about him. He's just an incredible man of God. And it was an honor to meet him. It was an honor to watch him and James White debate. I didn't think I'd ever actually see something like that, but I got to see it. It was definitely really, really, really cool. So yeah, there you go with that. So we did that Saturday night, and it was great. We enjoyed it. We went back home to the Airbnb house, and we were just absolutely dead tired. I mean, that was pretty much the end of the trip. For me, we had one more day left, which was the Sunday of General Conference, but it was only like half a day because our plane was going to leave around 1:50, something like that, like 2 o'clock basically. So we had to be at the airport by like noon. But we managed to get one conversation out there at General Conference in that second day on Sunday, which was awesome because I on Saturday I got nothing. I mean, all day I was just handing out tracts and just hoping that. I mean, I was lucky to get out. I got out all day Saturday. I may have handed out maybe 6 or 7 tracts. Sunday was different, which for some reason, because I actually handed out more tracts on Sunday, which was fascinating. And I got a conversation on Sunday. These 2 girls, very lovely, very sweet. They're walking by. Everybody's rejecting our tracts. Most people anyway. There's a good group of people who came before it, took some tracts and stuff like that. I don't know if they took them to be mocking or anything like that, but I mean, we did get mocked at, and it is what it is. But but these 2 girls are coming by, Norma and Eliza. I believe that was their names. I know one was Norma. The other one, I keep wanting to say Ezra, but I'm pretty sure it's Eliza. They're walking by, and they already have. So we're kind of like there's a street corner down that way, and there's a couple of our friends. They're not on our team, but they're friends, fellow Christians, fellow brothers, who are down there, and they're talking to a Mormon apologist. They've been talking to this guy for like all morning. But when the 2 girls are coming towards us, they already have tracts from them. So they took their tracts, and so I looked at the 2 of them, and they were both smiling, they're laughing and stuff like that. So clearly they're not offended by the tracts. And so I handed them one of ours, one of the ones that we had, and said, "Can I offer you guys something a little bit more to read? Here's another one." And so she took it, Norma took it, and then they left. And they said, "Thank you very much," and they were very, very nice. And I thought to myself, man, I should have stopped them. And I didn't. But the Lord gave me another chance. So about 30 or so minutes later, we're just out there, just doing our thing, handing out tracts. It's cold outside and everything. And here they come again. They're coming back. And they're not necessarily coming towards us, but they are coming back. They're just walking back down the sidewalk. And I thought to myself, oh, this is my chance. I've got to stop them now. And so as they're coming towards us, or kind of about to walk past us, I just looked at them and I smiled. So, did you read anything yet? Did you read anything yet? Any of the tracts yet? Or I know I said, did you read any of the material yet? And they were like, Norma was like, no, not yet. And so I just decided, well, can I ask you some questions? Is it okay if I ask you a few questions? And they both paused for a moment, but then they're like, yeah, sure. And so we kind of pulled off over to the side, and we started talking to them. My buddy Albert and I were talking to them, and my sister got a picture of us. And we were just, I wanted to make sure that I was very adamant that, because one of the things I've struggled with is trying to really differentiate between the LDS Jesus and the Jesus of the Bible, and contrast the 2 of them. And for this one, I was like, I'm definitely going to do it. I'm going to really, really like wedge between the 2 of them. Not because I don't like the 2 of these girls, because I love them. And I want them to have the true Jesus. And if you want somebody to have the true Jesus, sometimes it involves kind of, in a certain sense, hopefully in a graceful way, crushing their world and making them realize, I don't have the true Jesus. And so that was kind of what we did. And so I demonstrated to them from the Bible, and in comparison to the teachings of the church, the LDS church, that they have a different Jesus. And my buddy Albert really helped me bring that out even more by saying, in the Jesus in Mormonism, or in Latter-day Saint, the LDS church is the brother of Lucifer. The Jesus of the Bible is the creator of Lucifer, because he's the one true God. There's only one God, and Jesus is him, come in the flesh, the second person of the triune God, coming in flesh. Come in flesh, basically. But so that's him. Those are 2 different Jesuses. They're nothing alike. They're completely different. You can talk about Jesus dying for your sins all you want, but who he is so incredibly important. And if you get him wrong, Jesus says, John chapter 8, verse 24, if you get him wrong, it doesn't matter if you believe he died for your sins and rose on the 3rd day, because that Jesus doesn't save at the end of the day. And we were pointing out, their responses to us. Norma said, "Well, I just grew up in this church, and that's just kind of." And I said, "Well, I gave some examples of myself and the evangelical background that I grew up in, and I had to realize a lot of that wasn't true on the testimony of Scripture. And so I had to reject a lot of my upbringing. And then I went even further and said, there's Muslims in the world. They're born and raised in Islam, and that's just what they grew up in. But that doesn't make it true. The truth makes it true, And Norma understood that. She's like, yeah, that's true, And so, I was just pressing forth. And what I'm telling you right now, you may have grown up in this, but that doesn't make it the truth. And I want you to have the truth. I want you to know the truth because, as Jesus says, the truth sets you free. And so, we just pressed in on who God was and who Jesus was. And then, of course, we talked a little bit about the gospel and how the LDS Church gets grace completely wrong. It misunderstands grace. We were showing them from the Book of Mormon how it distorts and therefore twists the gospel in an irredeemable way. That in Mormonism or in the LDS theology, grace is something that you get after you keep commandments, and that's what basically the Book of Mormon says. But after you, and I forgot what it was in one of the tracks that we had. It was in, I forgot what it was, but it was a passage in the Book of Mormon that said, keeping the commandments basically provides remission of sins. And then you have Moroni 10:32, where if you deny yourself of all ungodliness, then the grace is sufficient for you. And you see how that works. The grace comes after you've denied yourself of all ungodliness. In other words, after you've perfected yourself. Because if you deny yourself of all ungodliness, what are you? You're sinless. And if you're sinless, you're perfect. And then, according to Moroni 10:32, you get the grace. Of course, I don't know why you need grace anymore, but that's when you get the grace. And that's completely opposite of Ephesians 2, for instance. Ephesians 2, verse 8, for by grace you have been saved. So the grace leads to salvation. The grace causes salvation. And we were pointing out to these young ladies that grace is an action of God. It's what God does. It's not what we do. It's what God does. It's not that God provides this way that now you, and the example I used was that it's not that God provides this way for you to make yourself right with Him. It's that He actually Himself reaches down and grabs you and pulls you out of the filth and the mire. That kind of sort of goes into my particular views on soteriology, of course, but I don't want to get too much into that stuff. But I want to just sort of finish this by saying, by just giving a quick little recap, I guess, of why I do this. I was offered the opportunity to join this group years ago, back in 2019, and back then I was thinking, why would I do something like that? That's crazy. And I ended up doing it, and I ended up loving it. The next time around, which wasn't 2020, because 2020 everything got shut down because of the pandemic. Then 2021 came around. That was when my second trip came, and I was still very, very nervous about the second trip, and I don't remember it too well. I know my buddy Albert came for that one, and then last summer was my third trip out there, and that's when my sister joined us, and that was really cool. That was probably my favorite team of all of them. And then there was this one. This was my fourth time going, and I got to be honest with you. This fourth time going, I wasn't nervous at all. Well, I was nervous, like leading up to it, like on the first morning of going out to MTC, I was nervous. But as soon as we arrived on MTC and we got out of the van, at this point the nerves went away, and I'm like, I don't know. I just kind of went into mode like, here we go again. That was it. And so went to the corner and just did our thing. And the more I was doing it, like the less nervous I was getting. I mean, it was just so easy. Not easy, but it was just calm. It was just like, I get a conversation. If not, whatever. Like the first few times doing it was absolutely nerve-wracking for me. It was just so hard to push myself to get close to that person and try to hand him the tract in the midst of all of the awkwardness. This time around, there was really none of that. I was just like, I was looking directly at him. I was like, hi, hello, kind of like that. Can I offer you something to read? That's basically what I would do. I was like, just a tract on the gospel. Would you like something to read about Jesus? And the one thing I didn't do, though, that I did last time that was very efficient, that I need to do more of again, is when I hand him the tract, ask him a question as I'm handing him the tract. Say, can I ask you a few questions about Jesus? Can I ask you who Jesus is? Who do you think Jesus is? Something like that. Because when I did it last time, almost all the time they stopped. Almost every single time they stopped. And therefore I got way more conversations. But anyways, but it wasn't terribly nerve-wracking for me. General conference was, because that was my first time doing general conference, so I didn't know what to expect. So that one. General conference was a little bit hectic, but I loved it. Sorry, it's about bedtime. But I wanted to finish this by just saying to everybody, all of my supporters, that I greatly appreciate your support. And I want to also highly encourage anybody who watches this. I want to let you know something. That doing something like this is certainly scary. It was for me. Not as much as it used to be. But I will tell you that stepping out and doing something like this, not a lot of Christians do this kind of stuff. But once you do stepping out and doing something like this, I guarantee you, the years you spend going to church and doing the studies, whatever, the Wednesday night Bible studies or stuff like that, joining the programs that they do and the different classes that they'll have during certain seasons, marriage classes or something like that. Doing that for years it will not grow you. In the years that you do that, will not grow you in the even 1 week you do doing something like this. I really believe that. Doing this kind of stuff, I guarantee you, it will make you a better Christian. It really will. It's going to push you, it's going to challenge you. It's going to make you recognize the holes in your own theology that you need to fix. It forces you to confront issues. And look, theology is important. It's extremely important. We like to say it's not, but it's very important. Because a lack of theological understanding will cause you to look at the Jesus of Mormonism and the Jesus of the Bible and see them as the same thing. And that's the problem. If you know theology, then you know the difference between the two, and then you can therefore love your LDS neighbor properly. But if you don't know theology, you can't. You can't. And that goes for any cult or other form of like major branch off from Christianity that goes down the wrong road completely and subverts the gospel, as the LDS Church does. But it's gonna make you a better Christian. It does wonders for you. And also the fellowship that you have with other believers. You're gonna, let me put it this way. My church is reading through Acts right now, the missionary journeys of the apostles and stuff. Look, I don't say this because I think I'm better than anybody. But when we sit down at my church and we read through Acts, I sometimes think, like, I can relate to them in a totally different way than most of the people I in my congregation. Again, I don't say that to be mean, but I mean to do the things that Paul did. I mean, Paul would go into towns and he would like directly attempt to convince the people, as many as he could, that Jesus was the Christ. And he would argue with them and he would debate with them. How many of us do something like that? How many of us, I'm not talking about on Facebook, I'm talking about doing what Paul did. He just goes right up to people. I can see Paul in the market square striking up conversations with people, and just, he would go into synagogues. I mean, he would just go directly to them. And what we like to do is we try to dance around that idea. It's almost like we try to entice people to Christ with kind actions and things like that. And don't get me wrong, kind actions are very important. Like yes, you need to be kind to people. But that's not the only thing. If you know, even atheists can help grandma across the road. I remember one time I was going to church years and years ago, and I saw this homeless guy sitting on a corner, and I thought to myself, I'm feeling super spiritual this morning, so I'm gonna get this guy something to eat. So I went inside and I grabbed some food and stuff like that, and I bought some food in the Walgreens or the corner that he was on. I just walked up and I gave it to him, and he was surprised by it. You know, he's like, "Oh, thank you very much." Gave it to him and I left. That was it. Never shared the gospel with him. Didn't do any of that stuff. And I drove away from there feeling like something was wrong, like I didn't do something right. And of course I would eventually discover that all I did was feed the guy, but I didn't give him the food that would nourish his soul. How's that any different from just moralism? Because that's all that is. That's just, if you're just doing good deeds and you're not telling somebody the reason why you do these things, then it's moralism. That's all it is. It's just showing how good of a person you are. I've never had anybody, because I was being nice to them, ask me, Chase, what makes you such a nice person? I've never had anybody do that to me. Every time I try to be like super nice to people, I just end up, what they do is they take advantage of me then. And the reason why is because they're sinners who love themselves. And of course they're going to love somebody who lavishes on them. Of course they are. Would you be willing to eventually sit down with such a person and tell them the truth? Look, I really want to tell you about Christ. But I also need to, before I can do that, I need to tell you the truth. That there is a holy God who has a righteous judgment against sinners. And you're one of them. You are a sinner. And what I hope that I can do in showing my kindness towards you is that God saves sinners, and he can save you from your sins. And that's obviously a very general statement. It wouldn't go exactly like that. But imagine telling somebody that they're a sinner. Would you tell a stranger that? I've done it. Would you tell a stranger that they're sinners? Those two girls I was just telling you about, Norma and Liza, I told them that. I told them you're sinners. And you're going to have to stand before God and answer for everything that you've done. And I know that that that's not going to work. You need a perfect righteousness. And that's what Christ does for you. If you put your trust and your faith in him, if you trust that the God of the universe, who must hold us accountable for our sin, chose to take our sin upon himself so that we wouldn't have to. If we would trust in him, then we would be saved. This is what I told them this. And I told them that because I love them and I care about them. So it has to be more than just good actions. And that's what Paul did. Paul did those things. Peter did those things. Jesus did those things. Repent and believe the gospel. What does repent mean? Repent means to turn away. The assumption is that you're involved in wickedness and you need to turn away from it. Idolatry, and you need to turn away from it. I know that hurts people's feelings and it may cause problems, but they have to hear the truth. And if all we do is give them food and we don't give them the truth, then when they die in their sins, I think the Lord's he's going to request some answers from you for why you wouldn't do it. And the reason why we don't do it is because we're scared. Because, and I know this because of what I've been doing in evangelism. My buddy Troy, who's part of our team, he says, you will always, he tells all the new people especially, you're going to be scared. You're not going to want to do it. You're not going to want to walk up and talk to that person because you're so scared. You're partially afraid that you're going to mess up, but you're also scared that this person is what this was. You're afraid of what this person's going to think of you, and you know what you're doing when you do that. You're making it about you, not about God, not about the salvation of this person. You're making it about you. What you're saying is, that's a lost person, and I'm not going to go try and talk to them because I'm afraid they're going to look at me like I'm a weirdo. That's self-preservation, and that's pretty serious. And I've had to learn to take that thinking in my head and just throw it out the window. It takes time to learn how to do that. The more you do stuff like this, the more easier it gets. It never completely goes away. I still struggle with it. I always have to fight it, but it becomes easier and easier to fight it as you do stuff like this. But that's the truth. That's the reality of it. You're trying to preserve yourself. You're being selfish when you don't do that. When you refuse to try and talk to that person. So, I just want to reiterate here that doing something like this, I would encourage everybody watching this, all my fellow believers, all my supporters, I would encourage you guys to think about getting involved. I guarantee you, you're going to love it. It's going to be such an eye-opener. And like I said, it will make you a better Christian. It's going to shoot your sanctification into a whole new level. It's going to force you to recognize your own weaknesses. It's going to force you to strengthen your theology. And it's going to introduce you to a level of brotherhood amongst believers you've never experienced before. I mean, you're going to be so close to the people in the 1 week that you work with these Christians. You're going to be closer to these people probably than most of the people in your own congregation, because you're going to have labored together. You're going to have so many incredible spiritual experiences together. It just creates this connection that's just, I really can't describe it. You have to come experience it yourself. And it's one of the reasons why I keep going. It's one of my favorite parts of the trip, is just the fellowship amongst fellow believers from different walks in life. You learn that you're the little world of the Christian people that you know. You're going to learn it's so tiny, and you're going to recognize there's this entire world of Christendom. It's not just our church, and our particular church denomination or non-denomination church sect or whatever. There's tons of different Christians out there, and you learn to get along with each other. That's what I've learned, and it's been such a humbling experience. I've branched out. I go to a Calvary Chapel church, but I've branched out from the Calvary Chapel perspective and gotten to know Christians of different stripes, the Reformed ones, the Presbyterians, the Baptists, the Lutherans, even the Charismatics a little bit. Yes, I have charismatic Christian brothers and sisters. Just these different Christian groups, and just learning more about them. It's been a great experience, and I've enjoyed it. So, but anyways, that's the trip recap. As always, it's wonderful. I love it. Getting to do what we do there has just been great. And like I said, it just makes me a better man. It helps me recognize my own flaws, and it's a weird thing, but it just helps me understand my own flaws. It puts things in perspective for me, and how I need to improve in so many different ways in areas of my life. I always go home with so much to think about. Always. I never go home feeling empty. I go home just, sometimes I feel like I don't even want to go home. Like I want to stay here, because now I'm going back to normal. But it's an incredible experience. You got to do it at least once. So if you're interested in joining us, we are going to have a team. What we do every single time after we do these trips, we do sort of like a lunch of some kind, sort of a trip recap, and where we invite all of our supporters to come and join us and listen to the stories that we have, and just as we go through all of our conversations that we had, and just the things that God was doing out there with us and through us and for us. So you're invited to join us. I will let you know when we do it and where, so you can come join us, and then maybe see if I might want to try and do something like this, because we would love to have more people join us. We really would. And don't tell yourself, don't try to rationalize, I just don't think I can do that. If you're a Christian, you can do something like this. You can do it. Evangelism is not a unique Christian gift. It is part of being a Christian. Evangelism is sharing Christ. If you're a Christian, you can share Christ with people. What's holding you back, again, is that self-preserving fear. It really is. If you're going to be honest with yourself, as I've had to be honest with myself, if you're being honest with yourself, you're going to recognize, the reason why I don't is because I'm afraid of what people will think of me. I'm afraid of what might happen. And I would just kindly say that the apostles, Jesus, had to deal with a lot of stuff like that. The prophets did. That self-preservation, that natural instinct that they had to suppress. How many of them had to do that? I wonder. Scriptures never really say much about it, but I'm pretty sure a lot of them had to suppress a lot of that. Just in faith, going out there and doing what had to be done, what they had to do. In the end, they had so much joy. And I guarantee you will have so much joy. So, thank you everybody for your support. Soli Deo Gloria. God bless. Bye.